Hello, I'm Sarah of Tortoise Crafts and I'm going to show you today how I make my quilted postcards. The postcard that I'm going to show is this tumbling wall landscape postcard, very similar to the ones that are in some of my books. The instructions and the pattern are available on my website. To make the postcard you need the pattern, some fusible web, pencil, a selection of fabrics for the actual design, sewing threads for the machine, hand embroidery threads, white cotton for the back, 2 pieces of other cotton that are not going to be seen, so can be any shade, a piece of wadding and iron-on interfacing, ironing mat and your sewing machine. The first thing I do is prepare my white backing fabric and my 2 other pieces. I give them a good press, and then on the white I press the interfacing, and the same thing with one of the other pieces of cotton. The next stage is taking the pattern, putting the fusible web on top and drawing all the pattern pieces. The pattern is hand drawn and the right way round for just putting the fusible web on top. I would advise writing which piece is which, because it's very easy to forget which piece goes with which colour when you cut them out. All the pieces are cut out with a small seam allowance round, and they are already labelled, so I know which pieces work with which fabric. Now all the pieces are cut out of the fusible web, I will match the pieces with the fabric so I know which ones have got to be ironed onto which fabric. So heel onto dark green, heel onto light green, field onto that flat fabric, sky onto the blue, and the wall onto the grey. I take each piece of fabric in turn, give it a press to make sure it's not got any creases in it, put the relevant piece of fusible web on top and press following the manufacturer's instructions. I will do that for every piece of fabric. The fabric I've got for the sky, if I use the right side, is very blue, it's too blue for the look I want, so I'm actually going to use the wrong side of the fabric as the sky. So I will press my interfacing onto the right side of the fabric. Now all the pieces are ironed on, I will cut the fabric to take off the large pieces and then cut round on the line for every piece. They're cutting round on the line. All the pieces are now cut out and are ready for the next stage. After peeling the paper backing off, lay the rest of the pieces on. When you're happy that everything is on properly, press in place. The next thing to do is to draw the rectangle of the finished size onto the piece. I use my 6x6 square ruler to do this because I can see through and also line everything up. Now my rectangle is drawn on, I will turn my piece over and I will take my wadding I personally use 505 temporary adhesive, but you don't have to. I just use a slight spray, turn it over and place it on the back of the postcard. Front, another small spray and put the back in place. That is now layered up, ready to machine quilt. To machine quilt, I'm just using standard sewing thread, but I'm only using 2 shades. One, the grey for the wall, and a green that is going to work for all the shades. You can use lots of different colours, whichever you prefer. I'm going to start up there with my straight stitch, and I'm going to stitch along the edge of the first heel. I'm going to do this in the blanket stitch, sometimes called a plique stitch, depending on your machine. Switch back to the straight stitch, and I'm going to stitch along the edge of that field. I'm then going to go along the edge of the wall, but on the field fabric, not on the wall itself. I do this because I want my threads to finish off the edge of the postcard. That's all the stitching I'm going to do with the green. I'm now going to swap over to the grey. When I get to the bottom, I'm going to lengthen my stitch, and I'm going to go round just outside the marked line. This just holds the layers together when I'm going to do the next stage. I'm going to now draw the stones on the wall. I'm very used to doing this. I do it all the time, so I don't tend to do this next stage. To draw the lines, I use a ruler and just put my lines in the space that I think I want my stones. I use a Pigma Micron pen, usually a 3, sometimes a 4, and start to draw my stones. Every postcard will be different because each stone, the way I draw the stones, will be slightly different. Now I will start on the bricks that make up the wall. Once you have drawn all the stones on the wall, I just go and give some little shadows in these infill bits. Just go like that, just to make them a little bit darker and give a little bit of depth and feature to the wall. All the stones are drawn on the wall, and I've given it a little bit of detail with the colouring in. It's now ready for hand stitching. I embroider with lots of different shades of stranded embroidery thread. I think it gives you more depth to the feel of the postcard. So for this particular one, I have got different shades of green and a straw colour as well. 2 of my favourite threads are the green variegations. I use a combination of 1 and 2 strands of the thread for these long stitch. I don't start right at the bottom where you're going to finish the postcard, because when you finish the edge, this can catch in the stitching. So I start a tiny bit up and then stitch randomly different lengths, different directions for the grasses. I've done all the grasses all on this piece here and some up the wall. I'm now starting on the French knots that will be on the top of the wall and then as moss in the wall. I do French knots in a slightly different way from what you see in the books. I hold my thread, I twist it round the needle, hold it tight and then push it down and pull it through. I've finished doing the French knots that I want along the top of the wall and actually in the wall as moss. I'm now just going to do a few running stitches on the heels to give them detail. Now all the hand stitching is done, all the French knots, all the grass and the stitching to give the details on the heel. Now it's time to put the clean backing on. The clean backing is the white cotton with the interfacing. Place it down with the interfacing upmost and put your postcard on top, and then just pin to hold together, and also to check that it's gone over properly. I'm zigzagging on a standard stitch from my machine just inside the marked line, and I will go all the way round I have gone all the way round just inside the line. This is now ready to be trimmed. You can do it with scissors. I tend to do it always with a rotary cutter and a ruler on the marked line. And I go around all four sides. Once I've done this, I will then go back to the machine. I will do another row of zigzag stitch that is closer together and tighter together. I have gone round yet again with a closer and wider zigzag. I'm now going to trim off these little bits that are around the edge with a pair of scissors. I just ran the scissor edge along the edge of the fabric, taking little bits off, the little fluffy bits that are along the edge to neaten it up. Once I've done this, I will go back to the machine and do yet another round closer together and wider again. I have finished my postcard. I've been round the outside 4 times, gradually getting closer together and wider and trimming off the edges. This is how I like my edging. It's a personal preference. I've got a nice clean back that I can now write on, and what I do with my postcards is I actually make them look like a postcard. I put the centre line down, I stamp them with my own logo, and I put a date stamp as you would for British stamps. Don't forget, the pattern for this is on my website. It is free to download. You just have to join the members section, which again, everything is free. Also, there are a lot more patterns available in my books, from the starter one through to the flowers, Christmas, and then the last one was the art edition, which has a lot more of these landscape type postcards in. Thanks for watching. I'm Sarah of Tortoise Crafts.